I'm sorry, everybody. I think we got an error. Very sorry. Very, very sorry for that. An error on our side. Seems like the YouTube went on, which was still part of what we're supposed to discuss. So I'll ask the admin to just pray for us. I don't know whether so that we kick off afresh, kindly.
Let's bow our head in prayer. Heavenly Father, King of Glory, we thank you and praise your name, dear Lord. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for allowing us to meet today and discuss things that are beneficial to us. May all of us benefit from whatever will be discussed today. In Jesus' name we do pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Our webinar is very clear, and I see I've had a lot of engagements online on this topic. Now, toxicity has been a discussion on the corridors, and we have talked so much to everybody else. We've talked to employees, we've been able to talk to other stakeholders, and we said, let's get to hear what the top management says about toxicity. It's time for the top management to speak to us. With us today, we have Kuresha, CHRP Kuresha Abdullahi. Kuresha is ED, Executive Director of IHRM. And I know we have a lot of HR professionals in the room and many others. We have Gathoni Mbugwa, who is a senior clinical psychologist at the Chiromol Hospital Group. We have Fred Waswa, who is a CEO and founder of Octagon. So in the interest of time, I would definitely just go through our program for today, just briefly. Number one, you are hosted by Conversations with Esther Katiba. Conversations with Esther Katiba is a media platform that speaks to workplace issues. We have candid conversations on workplace issues. And for us, we speak to issues in the workplace with no fear or favor. So we make sure that the employer, the employee, and the other stakeholders enjoy the workspace. So you can continue to get us on our YouTube, Conversations with Esther, as we go on. Just a few of the house rules. We'll still catch up with time. Our house rules, number one is please settle in a quiet place, kindly mute. Unless you are speaking, listen attentively and give respect to the speakers. Q&A will be done at the end. Feel free to type in your questions in the chat box and keep an open mind to learn. And let's respond to each other with absolute respect. Now, I want to read something just here. Workplace toxicity results in workplace stress. People who are stressed are more likely to smoke more, drink more, and are more likely to overeat, says Jeffrey, a professor of the organizational behavior at Stanford Graduate School. Now, how modern management harms employee health and company performance, and what we can do about it. Now, stressed workers are more likely to abuse drugs. They are less likely to exercise. Workplace stress affects not only people's health directly, but also indirectly through its effect on their individual health-relevant behavior. He says, according to Jeffrey, other health complications that may arise from a toxic work environment include high blood pressure, heart attack, insomnia, fatigue, and general feeling of sickness, anxiety, and paranoia. Now, as we move into the next, I know we have received quite a number of questions, and I want to start by saying what exactly is workplace toxicity. We may not, my list does not exhaust that, and that's why we have the guests. I'm just laying a foundation of this discussion. So there's poor communication in the workplace, there's lack of trust, there's high turnover, demotivated workers, there's burnout, there's micromanagement, there's poor leadership, there's unfair company practices where promotions are biased, salary increments are biased, job placements are biased, there's bootlicking, where boss pleasers will do what the boss wants at the expense of the rest of the people. There are those shouting bosses that are not able to communicate well. They are angry and over emotional bosses, live wire bosses, you know, those explosives that just wait for you to touch and they explode. They are bosses who fear and suppress smarter team members, you know, insecure bosses. That's a language that you have had in your workplace. And their workplace cliques. Worse of it is if the CEO and the top leadership is in the cliques. Those are just basics of it. As we go on, I know there has been something, I know you've seen a lot of iceberg of ignorance. It's everywhere, it's in every meeting. I'm just laying a foundation before we go into having the conversation with our first speaker. Now, the iceberg of ignorance, a study popularly attributed to consultant Sydney Yoshida, concludes that only 4% of an organization's frontline problems are known by top management, only 4%. 9% are known by middle management, 74% by supervisors, and 100% by employees. Now, this leaves us thinking, are CEOs aware of what happens in organizations? Do CEOs really care about what happens in the organization? You know, are they just sitting in their office and not aware of what is happening? Or profits, do profits really matter to them more than anybody else in the organization? So help me welcome Quresha Abdullahi, Executive Director of IHRM. She will, I know I will definitely pose a few questions to her. Quresha, you're there? So that she can lead us in the next session for 30 minutes, and we will have Fred Waswa, and we will have finally the medic and get the mental wellness or mental awareness bit. So Quresha, you could unmute and maybe have your camera on if possible.
Thank you. And thank you, Esther. I sent you a screenshot. I'm having issues with my camera.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not in the office. I hope Dan will come to my rescue, because I was getting the error I showed you, and I picked the call.
That's fine.
Site. Thank you so much, Esther, for organizing this timely conversation, and good evening to everyone who joined the call. And you've actually set the pace in terms of when it comes to workplace toxicity. What is it about, and why is it that it's important for us to make sure that we ensure that our workplaces are safe? We need to create an enabling environment for all employees to prosper and get creative and innovative, rather than having a workplace which is so toxic that even it affects your thinking capacity. You know, when the workplace is toxic, it affects so many things in terms of when it comes to the dissatisfaction of the employee. So that is when now when you start getting disengaged employees because you don't know what to expect, for the fear of how tomorrow will look like, then it even affects the productivity of the workplace. And you know, as HR leaders, CEOs, and I want to speak specifically on what is our role as HR professionals. You know, we need to set the pace. Some environments, we can actually protect it if we have the right processes and policies in place. And something that is very close to, I know, the heart of Esther is culture. If that is, when I walk in and I see something is not right and I'm told, this is the culture here, then that means you want a very wrong culture to continue thriving. So how do you come in and ensure that as HR professionals, we make sure that our environment is safe from any toxic activities, whether it's coming from the leadership? Sometimes you might be surprised. It can even be someone who is lower than you that is creating what I would like to call either a direct report or people on the lower cadre. So the how is very important at the beginning. Then when it happens, then you should have mechanisms in place to address. Okay, so when it's about mechanism, so you're talking about building the harassment, the discriminations, the favorism that goes on in an organization. You may think it's good, but it's toxic, micromanagement itself. So give people their space. And when it comes, put in place mechanism in terms of conflict management to address the issues that are related to workplace toxicity. It exists, and by the way, everyone faces it. You, even a CEO can be bullied by a junior staff the same way a senior staff can bully a junior staff. And if you listen around, you will see how that dynamics plays around. So we need to put our foot both as the leadership and also as HR professionals who guide the processes. I always like to say, as HR professionals, we are responsible for the employees from hire to retire. The 8 hours they spend working for us, it doesn't matter whether they're around physically or they're working offsite. How are you protecting them? Including cyberbullying. You know, some people can actually get into your nerves in terms of following up on reports, you know, bringing you down, and all that is happening on emails, on WhatsApp, until you just get exhausted. And I'm sure you've seen there are people who dread to come to office on Mondays, and there are people who actually look forward to get to the office as it helps them plan for the rest of their week. In terms of the organizational culture, that is very critical. The policies, the processes you put in place, very critical. How you define relationships at the organization, whether it's between the direct reports, whether it's between co-workers, whether it's vertical or horizontal relationship, then for anyone who wants to have a productive work environment, you need to ensure that it's safe for everyone to thrive. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you for that, Koresha. Now, as a top leader of the HR fraternity in Kenya, what's your opinion in handling especially toxic CEOs? What do you think? I know we have toxic CEOs. It's not an exception. What would you advise on how we can handle toxic CEOs? Thank
you, Esther. And just like any other employee can be toxic, even the leadership can be toxic, and specifically when it comes to the CEOs. Everyone is answerable to someone when it comes to the organizational hierarchy. But when it comes to policy implementation and protecting the employees from such environment, then that responsibility lies with the HR. And you have to make sure when you're hiring, of course, there is the vision, the mission of an organization, and then there is that vision that the CEO is supposed to deliver on behalf of the board. Okay? So how do you make sure that the same is aligned to the policies and the practices of the organization? And you carry along with its values and culture. You know, you have to make sure that you have a policy in place that if a CEO is toxic or someone at the exco is toxic, how will that procedure look like? Okay, and is it clear to everyone in the organization that should you be bullied or should you feel like you're being mistreated in terms of favoritism to others, in terms of not being supported to deliver in your work? These are the reporting mechanism. It's very important. And now we're talking about a very senior person. Not everyone will come out and say the CEO did ABCD. So do you have anonymous reporting channels that someone can actually report? Now, reporting is one thing. Investigating the same, whether you substantiate or not substantiate, is also another issue. But most importantly, the foot, what I would like to call the foot at the door, the minute a CEO walks into the organization, it must be clear to them the culture of the organization, what are the practices, what is the policy, what is accepted and what is not accepted, what is their responsibility to deliver all this. So it's something that as a HR professional, define the policies, make sure it's known to everyone, from someone sitting at the C-suite to the janitor who works for that organization, or what we call the cleaners. So you have to create an equal opportunity environment whereby everyone is treated equally. The policies are open to everyone. There is clear communication of if something happens, who should I report to? How should I report to? There has to be that respect for everyone. Any toxic behavior, how is it reported? If I don't want to come out by myself, do I have an anonymous way of reporting? How do you get back to me? And in the event that you need to report back to me on how you've handled, whether, sometimes those who are bullied are either a group who chose to come out as a group or as an individual. So it doesn't matter what it is, do not just downplay. Every complaint matters. And the CEO's responsibility is to ensure that everyone has a safe environment. If that does not happen, then HR steps in and implements the policy. Because remember, data and documentation sets you free. Because if the CEO was not told this is not the practice from the beginning, then they'll think it's okay. Sometimes it's upon us to make sure and tell people this is not okay. If it happens to you, this is how you should handle it. Thank you, Esther.
So, thank you. I know it's easier said than done, and I know you really are committed to making sure that HR professionals are able to do that. But it's really a very difficult place to be, we must admit, when it is a CEO that is toxic, and the CEO is the type of people that cannot be told anything, or they don't listen, or they are Mr. Right or Miss Right. Now, in that breath, Kuresha, what is the role of IHRM in ensuring that the workplace is mentally, emotionally, and psychologically safe for all employees? What is IHRM doing in intervening?
Thank you.
Because we definitely have a toxicity. It's all over now. What is IHRM doing?
Thank you so much for actually bringing that into perspective. The Institute of Human Resource Management, as I'm hoping that everyone who is practicing HR and in this conversation is a member, we regulate the profession, build competence, and also protect members' welfare. As an institute, we know that these issues exist. How we have ensured that there is actually a reporting mechanism. We have a code of conduct in place, which actually guides the HR professionals. And I welcome you to check our website. You will find it there. And it was gazetted last year, actually, no, 2021, November is when the same was gazetted. So it's law and it supports the act. There is, what is the code expected from a HR professional, how they should behave towards other professionals, and in case they realize there is an issue of misconduct, which now can lead to toxicity, there is a reporting mechanism, both direct and anonymous. And all those comes to the executive director, who again presents to the council. So we have a code of conduct that guides us on all the issues we talked about: harassment, whether it's sexual or any other harassment, bullying, discrimination, favorism, even being terminated for no reason, the HR misbehaving with you. So it's a sword, it's a double-edged sword. Guides the HR profession. If you see them misbehaving, they report. If you see any other person doing any HR issues, then you do that. Then number two, for us, it's more about capacity building. So how do we do that? We actually organize trainings on how to handle workplace conflicts and toxics, okay? So training and development. We then organize forums that we can meet when we go for conferences, we have the branch activities. Now such discussions come up and you can be guided on how to handle the same. We have the HRM magazine that we release on quarterly basis. You will find articles that can help and even guide you on how to handle this. Then in terms of influence of policies, we don't just keep quiet. We are part of that conversation. So if a major thing happens, then please, if we find it and it's in the public domain, we make sure that we give our voice and we actually drive policy. Right now, with what happened in the tea plantations, we are influencing through the Agricultural Employers Association to make sure that they come up with tight ways of handling such issues or even preventing for them to be happening ever again. That should not have happened and it should never happen again. And in terms of supporting the investigations, should such things happen. So we play a key role in terms of preventing, and when it happens, how do we handle and actually bring to book. If it's a HR professional and we find that you're capable, we'll either going to warn you or even withdraw your membership. And you know what that means, that you cannot practice without your practicing certificate. Thank you, Esther.
Wow, that's good, and that's lays a foundation. And I hope all the HR professionals in the room are listening to that. Now, I wanted to ask you one more question, Kuresha. Does IHRM have a partner a partner that is able to give us employee assistance programs, or a partner, or does IHRM also help HR professionals to fine tune and relook at their policies and processes? Does IHRM do that?
So thank you so much. So what we do actually, and the good thing, all these are within our membership network. We don't provide EAP directly ourselves, but we partnered with the like-minded, like for example, Chiromo hospital groups, in terms of handling, when you are dealing with toxic workplace issues, because remember there are some people, they are just there because they need to earn living, but the others, they will leave. If you look at, I think it's everywhere, when you look at the high turnover, the first thing that comes up is that I have not left the organization, I left my manager. Yeah. So we work with people who can ensure that when you hire those managers, you bring them up to speed on matters organizational culture, okay? And that's something that I just wanted to mention, that, the whole of conversation on who owns culture in the organization. There has to be that holder in an organization in terms of setting the pace and the direction for it. But it becomes the responsibility of everyone to make sure that we actually maintain a positive work environment that is accepted to everyone. Yes, thank you. So
finally, I can now see you.
I paused because the message I was waiting for has come.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
So now, what you've mentioned in terms of the partnership, please feel free, reach out to IHRM. We have over 17,000 members, 240 of them do consultancy of matters EAP. You will get it both online support, you will get it in person. You will get discount the minute you mention your IHRM. You can get as a group training if you wanted as an individual. So it's something that we are big on as an institution. And yes, we do not do it directly as a IHRM, but we work through our membership, who are also bring us great resources in terms of where they work and the services they are providing.
Good, thank you. You've actually answered my next question. I was going to ask you who owns culture, because when culture is good, it belongs to the CEO. When culture is bad, it belongs to HR. And you have answered that very well. I think we will straight on. I know we'll come back to you.
Esther,
yes.
Okay.
That's fine, Kuresha.
So,
Proceed.
yeah, thank you. So actually for that, there's the driver, okay? But as you drive that, remember, it's just like a vehicle. I am in control of the steering, but for us to arrive safely, you must all wear your seatbelt. The CO is the driver. The HR is the policy holder to ensure that everything is in order, and the rest of us have to own that culture and in a very positive way. So, and that ownership can come up when we've all defined what's the culture we want to be associated with. How can we all be certified? How can we be all highly engaged? And it is a will, the CEO, HR, and everyone else who is on board to drive that. And for us to reach safely, we need to keep on cleaning our windshield by keep on going back to, are we still in the same pace to continue being known for what we are known for, but not the toxic one. See, Leah, this one, it's normal. No, it cannot be normal. Harassing people and shouting at them in front of clients, that is not normal. And someone needs to change that. And the person who raises voice, then the CEO takes it up. Thank you.
And if the CEO raises a voice, the HR takes it up. I think that's a whole different thing. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kuresha. We will definitely come back to you. I want us to go straight to Fred Waswa. Fred is the founder and group CEO of Octagon Africa Financial Services. Fred is a leader that I admire a lot and a very good friend of mine. So Fred Waswa, the floor is yours. I know you will do the first bit of the intro, and then we will go into the questions that I have for you. Over to you, Fred.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Esther, can you hear me well?
Perfectly well.
Excellent. I have a small cold and cough, but we will go through it. My name is Fred Waswa. As Esther has mentioned, I'm the Group CEO for Octagon Africa Financial Services. I run a business in Kenya, Uganda, and Zambia. We're establishing in Dar es Salaam and Ghana at the same time. And we're happy to be here. And I think it's a very interesting topic. Thanks very much, Esther. Sometimes these things are never talked in forums like this. You know, you and your HR manager sit in your office and cry and listen to what do we do here? How do we do it this way? But I think when we share them here, then all of us learn from each other what's happening around our businesses, around our HR. Because from my own perspective, we don't have people who have no business. Literally. It does not matter whether you are running a factory and you have these fantastic machines you bought, and you have this fantastic land, and you all these kind of things. But if you don't have people, you don't have a business. And unfortunately, people come from different backgrounds and different upbringings. They are wired differently. They have been going through schooling, which is different. And these people, you get them together because you can never get all Alliance High School, all Maseno, Mangu. You can't get all of them in one room and say, okay, these are my stuff. You get people from different walks of life. And the challenge with that is that you find people who have been cultured very interestingly, who come through organizations, and sometimes that culture, if you as an organization doesn't then have a way of inducting them properly into the system, then the way they are cultured is the way they are going to bring their life into the business. It's more worse for a manager. If you hire a manager, I have hired mid-level managers, Esther, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge because mid-level managers come from different organizations. Some of them have worked for five companies, and now you are your sixth company. So they have carried cultures, 5 cultures they're carrying along. So if you don't induct them properly well, then you find that some bit of culture which may not be good could start creeping into the organization. So I think from where I sit, toxicity can only be sorted out from the what go at this time somebody gets into the organization. As Kuresh has mentioned, we must help them to understand what's our culture. You know, what is it that we as an organization believe in, and that's what we do with our staff. And I tell my HR, look here, I know when we hire, that's our problem, Esther. Small SMEs, when you hire today, it's because somebody left and you want that person now. And not just that person, you want to be working tomorrow morning. So land and take off. Now, unfortunately, you will find that if you hire somebody today and he starts working tomorrow, they have very little time to be able to do proper induction. I worked in a multinational company, and induction took 1 month. 1 full month induction. So they are paying me a whole month for not working, but for learning, for going through understanding what's this organization looking like, what do they do, how's the structure, who do I report to, who reports to me, and all these kind of things are learned at one particular time. Now, unfortunately, what we do is we allow people to learn on job. So as they are learning on job, there are things that they will not learn definitely because they become too busy, they become too engaged. They are managing clients and maybe supervising staff. So you find that they start supervising staff using a different culture than what you basically as an organization you want. So induction, I think for me, is a critical bit in managing toxicity, because it is one of the areas that we have always gone wrong as organizations. But even if you inducted people I know 101 times, because I've worked in these organizations, you will always find toxicity in an organization. And you always find people who are chachu, in Kiswahili chachu, and you must just deal with them. So the question is, how do we make sure that doesn't become part of the culture? That every other time there is that toxicity, people are going through this. But from where I sit, an organization cannot avoid toxicity. It always comes through. And the question is, how do you deal with toxicity when it actually has hit the ground? And you, as an organization, as a person, has learned and said, this is something that doesn't need to be here in this organization. And for me, there are a couple of things that one needs to look at. For example, code of conduct. That every other time, and that's what we do in our organizations. That every year, in around April, May, people must sign a code of conduct, might resign it and confirm that they have read it. You get it? Because people forget. If you look at the Bible says, faith comes by hearing and hearing. So we must get people to hear and hear about code of conduct, to be able to help them understand that there is a way which we must behave as a people. Because the code of conduct basically helps us to say, we have come from different cultures, we have come from different backgrounds, but this is how we want to behave. So whatever you have come with, if it doesn't fit here, please keep it out. So let us behave this way so that all of us can can work in a manner that is conducive, that everybody feels happy, everybody feels good. So a code of conduct for me, it's a critical bit in terms of managing toxicity. And of course, sometimes I always say it's just HR. Sometimes HR, the way HR handles people, I know everything else will end up at HR table. But the way as HRs we handle people can actually make it toxic, or can make it a great working environment. The way we discriminate, the way we treat one from different from another. We must always be conscious that whatever we are doing to one, we must be able to do to another one comfortably, without that person feeling pain or that person feeling happy. So that way, then we have a line that measures everybody at the same level. And sometimes it's not always that way. It's always very difficult because an employee walks into HR and HR walks into your office and says, no, this is what we are doing. I remember one time I had a staff who was, I mean, he was a manager, but his job was witch hunting, So he collects information from staff and collects information even before he started managing the staff, and goes to HR and says, look here, all this is wrong, all this is. So I'm saying, hang on a bit. If we looked for wrong things, we will get them. You get it? But that way, then you make the environment very toxic, because every staff will feel, hang on a bit, what do I do that I may look good? So what it means is that then you start having cliques, having gangs in the office, which becomes very difficult to manage. So toxicity is a great subject, and we need to really have that discussion in a hard way. Yeah, thanks.
Wow. I think Fred, you and me are in the same boat. You touch culture. I am lit. I am all lit. Now, and I like that. I like the direction you're taking, that we need to learn and unlearn when we join organizations. And I think that's where the problem is. Sometimes we bring in lessons from other places, and also we come in very good, Fred. We come in as performers. Then we find people in the business that have decided, I've had conversations from people. I was talking to a very senior manager, marketing manager, actually a regional one, the other day, yesterday, I think so. And she told me, I am in such a toxic place. I am even going through counseling. Now, it is that bad. That's a very senior person, very senior. I spoke to another one, and I had asked him to join the call. He's a CFO that is going through a very hard time because the top boss, the CEO and the top boss is toxic. I mean, using bad language, vulgar language, on even very top level people. Now, as you say in your organization, definitely people sign and sign again the code of conduct. Sometimes we train people, but there are things that kind of need to be uprooted. It's a character in people. I have seen leaders that will bring some of their members into a group. Now you find a certain department has 5 people and 4 are favorites of the boss and 1 has been left out. Now this kind of behavior in an organization kills talent. We've seen people leaving very good companies in big numbers because toxicity is actually killing brands, big brands. Right. And the minute you're branded out in the market, that is a toxic environment. One time I was looking for a job and I called a friend of mine and asked, I realized you worked in this company. What's your advice? And the first thing he just said is apply and join them at your own risk. Now, that's the way it is out here. That is the way it is here. So have you personally ever encountered toxicity? I think I need to start from there. You're very passionate about it. Feels like it's hit you at some point. Have you encountered it?
Not in that very tough manner, but I've encountered it in terms of working in organizations. I've worked maybe for about 5 or 6 companies, and in some companies you've worked in, you find that that toxicity is, for example, I've worked somewhere where what you just mentioned, the boss creates a group. At that time there were no groups, there were no WhatsApp groups and everything else. But every evening the boss would take some guys out for a drink, and so discussions are done at the pub. And us who don't drink, when we come back to the office, and you're asking yourself, so what happened yesterday? What happened yesterday? So you find that you're always fighting against a certain current, a certain current. Yes, I have, although maybe in different forms, but I have experienced toxicity as a person in my life. Yeah.
Good. Next one. Do you think, Rini, is it that because you're a CEO and you're a group You're a group CEO, Fred. Are numbers, to most CEOs, is it numbers that matter or the people? And really not you. I know you sit in forums where you discuss as CEOs. Have CEOs forgotten that they deal with people and have focused more on numbers, pushing and pushing numbers until they almost don't care about people? What's really happening to CEOs?
I think, okay, I think you're right to say that most CEOs focus on numbers. And the pressure for numbers is getting more and more. Why? Is because shareholders are pushing for returns every morning. So they hire a CEO and they're giving you targets which are absolutely impossible to meet. But because you want a job, sometimes you pick up the job and say, look, thank you very much. I pick up the job. And here you are. You need to make numbers. You make sure numbers are coming through. But in all this looking for numbers, I think as a CEO, one of the things we must understand that you can never get numbers without people. You never get numbers without people. And most successful CEOs are CEOs who have one hearts of people and minds of people. You know, you must win their hearts and win their minds. So which means that these guys can go out and drive the business on your behalf. You get the numbers, but they are also happy driving that business. And sometimes because the numbers don't really come through as they are. So what the CEOs do, because they are looking at the bottom line, they are looking at cutting costs. And where do they cut costs? HR costs. And that becomes a toxic environment. You get it? Because you are looking at, I say, look here, some guys must leave because I need to cut the numbers in terms of size, in terms of staff, and maybe salaries or benefits must be cut off because we cannot be able to continue having this. Why? Is because the bottom line must be met. You get it? But all these things can be done in a manner that is humane. Because that's also one thing that we forget, is that we're dealing with human beings. People have emotions, people have families, they are taking care of others. So when you wake up, I remember I used to work in an organization where retrenchment was done, and you will wake up one morning and get into the office and get a white letter on your table. And when you open the letter, it tells you, today is your last working day. Yeah, please report on to your supervisor and hand over. Now, you left your house. Your wife knew very well that at the end of this month, you will have fined, you have planned for 3 months, 1 year, and all of a sudden you have no job. That even the way you separate the people who are going, matters most how the people who are leaving think about the business. So I think for me, as a CEO, one of the things we must understand is that people are an important aspect of numbers. You cannot just look at numbers. You must look at numbers and understand yourself. How are the people being taken care of? Because at the end of the day, the organizations who did this. I remember I used to work for a company, and the CEO was not making returns on revenue. And what do? They decide to retrench staff, and they retrenched heavily and sold assets. So which means you bring in money and make one-off profits. But next year, you have a very toxic staff. People who are feeling this organization is absolutely crazy because they're feeling my boss didn't protect me or didn't protect my friend. So that way, then you will never sustain profitability of the business. So people are an important part, Esther. That is the simplest answer I should be able to give to your question.
Wow. Now, I like what you're saying about exits. Now, I've always said one thing, that your exits are your brand ambassadors. Yes. The way you exit you separate with employees affects your brand as an organization. And I have told people, before you join any organization, please, the same way we HRs would do a background check on you, please do a background check on the organization. look at the turnover rate, look at the leadership, look at who is at the top of it and Google them out, check and make a decision whether that's a company that you want to work for. Because sometimes organizations look very good and they give you a very good package. And I know Gadhoni will come later and tell us that it's not worth your health, my friend. It's not the money that you make. Sometimes you can make money and spend it all in the hospital. But that said, Fred, do you have forums where CEOs really talk these issues out, or you just go and celebrate the numbers and everything else? Do you have forums? Because I know that we could have some CEOs here.
No, I don't think I have had a forum that talks about these kind of things, especially, I mean, generally about people, you know, matters to do with people. I like it, you know, remember the program you did at Serena, which was a great program, get it? I think we need a CEO's forum discussing about people issues. I have CEO's forum discussing about numbers, how do you marketing, client management, all these kind of things, strategies. But discussing about people, it's always, can HR do that? But I think it is important for us as CEOs to understand that people is not just HR. It's not about the HR manager. People is about it's a resources for the organization that produce. So we must ask ourselves, what are we doing with that resource? Is an important thing that we need to put together. Maybe that's you need to do, Esther.
Coming soon. I think Kuresha is right there. Kuresha, you're still there. You can unmute, because I think that sounds like our next project with IHRM, right?
Okay.
Yes, and I think it's even as you wait for that project, it's a conversation that for everyone here, I'm seeing 72 people who are interested in this topic. We need to ensure that two things. As we discuss numbers, we're also discussing people. Absolutely. The same way we've onboarded people, it should be the same way we've exited. I liked, Fred, what you said. Onboarding should start the minute I've accepted the offer. As I give my notice, then all the information. Yes. We can even guide you how you want to structure that, how to do that. You know, sometimes it's easier said than done. So someone needs to drive that. And we have the same experience, Fred, that we were paid a whole month just to be onboarded rather than just to be drawn on the deep end. Now, it's normal. So now, from day one, I go with the normal when it's abnormal. So someone needs to stop that. Yes, there's time for CEOs to address how to handle people. And it basically boils down to how you onboard them. Not just telling them as a CEO, you must deliver on this, and this is the bottom line. He needs to know for him to achieve that bottom line, he needs empowered employees. He needs an enabling environment. He needs people who have free communication in terms of what is the flow of communication. Transparency is also key. Because if you start favoring between people that we've delivered on the same scale, but you give someone promotion and then the other one you don't give, then it will not work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kuresha. And this thing of favorites, I really hope it's not in the HR. I only hope it's not, because you really the person that carries the entire organization. You're the person onboarding the rest of the people. You know, Fred is laughing like it is in HR. Fred,
you say, okay, sometimes it may be unconscious, Esther. Sometimes it's unconscious. You may not be, you may not wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to favor people, but you may just be unconsciously doing something, and yet you are leaving behind others. You see, in an organization, you always have performers, high performers, and lower performers. You can never miss those. In fact, if you miss those, you have a problem. You must have a normal curve. You get it? So which means that as HR, you must treat that normal curve as normal curve. You can never wake up in the morning and say, no, I'm only going to treat the high performers best. You get it? And the lower performers, I'm not going to look at them because they need either to be, trained or inducted or whatever done to be done to them or exited. So HR cannot just take a cocoon of guys and say these guys are our performers. These are the guys I'll be taking out for a cup of tea or whatever it is, they are fantastic human beings. We must also be conscious about the people who are not performing at that particular time. So there must be a line, that we are that people can see us as fair, in terms of how we treat them as from an HR perspective. And that way, then it becomes very easy for the boss, the CEO, looking at it and saying, "How on, guys? I think my people are being treated equally, and I'm fine." Okay.
So Fred, tell me, how do you balance and how do you make time yourself to be able to interact with your leaders and your other employees? Because that's very key for you as a CEO. Do you ever get time to go down to the people? Because there's something I have seen, and that's what Kuresha was saying. It's a culture that you walk into an organization, and some of the culture is not even, it's just implied that in this place this is how we dress, this is how we talk to each other. Some places, of course, have a common tea area, but there are places where you walk in and you will see how a CEO and a manager is served and how the rest of the people are treated. So it kind of sits with the organization and the CEO. And I've had, as you mentioned, the Serena event, I remember the man I respect very much, Dr. Nelson Kuria, saying that as a CEO of CIC, he would actually come down from his office and serve himself tea and walk down to the people. That helped him understand his people. That helped him interact with a normal employee, because sometimes what happens to you CEOs is that we bring the best reports to you. We make sure that you do not interact with the rest of the people so that you will never get an opportunity to be told that Esther is toxic. So we present reports to you. We pick the reports from our team members. We bring to the CEO, and we ensure that the CEO is so busy and so occupied by the top level management that they will never get a moment with the rest of the people. That's why the iceberg of ignorance now falls on you, CEOs knowing 4% and missing out 96%. Because you sit in your office, we do our presentations, we meet with you at Ole Sereni and do the presentations, and you think everything is working well. And sometimes there's so much exit in the business. And I wonder whether the CEO is asking themselves one question: why are we losing talent? Why are people leaving the organization? So speak to that as a CEO.
Okay, it's not the easiest to interact with the shop floor, let me call it that way. I think one is because of time. As you said, everything keeps you busy, that by the time you want to go out and interact, the day is over. You get it? Sometimes, like for example, for me, I travel a lot, so you'll find yourself all over. But what I do is, whenever I find myself in my office, or I'm in Uganda or Tanzania or Zambia, what I do is I walk. I do what you call management by walking around. First of all, I must wake up, go out, get from my office, go to the shop floor where the operations is being done, have a conversation with each staff, just find out, are you okay? Is everything fine? I know, the challenge is that people opening up is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. In fact, at times I have to get hold of somebody's hand and say, "Hello, how are you?" Meet them at the corridor. "How are you?" "Fine." "Come to my office. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation."
They're almost running away at that point.
Yes. I remember when staff came to my office and said, "I'm coming here my first time." And "How long have you been here?" 4 years. 4 years you've not been here? So I must walk to them. We must do what we call management by walking around. You get it? So if we do that more, then we are able to open up. They're able to know that, oh, you're a normal human being. They can engage you. They can actually, at the corridor, they can say, "Hi, you know, they can talk to you, they can call you with your first name. And that's what I have always said. Nobody should you should call me sir, Mr. No, my first name. So you are able to break that barrier. Once you break that barrier, anybody who feels that there is something needs to be talked, they will always on the call just, hi guy, there's something that we were doing and I thought you needed to know. Maybe you've not been told, and you'll be told about it. Now, of course, sometimes is some CEOs have a challenge of that. Is they don't want to hear things from junior staff, they want to hear things from senior staff, which is okay. But if you don't listen to that junior staff, you only have the 4%. And let me tell you, Esther, it happens. There are times I feel like I'm too lonely up here and I'm not hearing things down there. Then I have to tell HR, look here, guys, we must get into an HR meeting. We must have a town hall meeting just to be able to hear what are people saying. What is it that people are talking about? You get it? Because it's I mean, it's very difficult. I always say being a CEO is not one of the best jobs, because you're supposed to drive a bus, as Kuresh said, you're supposed to drive a bus, but also know what the passengers are going through.
Otherwise, they'll stone you from the back.
Yes. And yet, the managers make sure there is a curtain between you and the driver and the passengers.
True.
The managers only give you a report. And sometimes if you only listen to the report, then you find yourself in trouble. You must just go beyond the report and open up the veil and say, what is going on the ground? You know, can I hear something? Is it something that I need to hear? You get it? Yeah.
Fantastic. I see we are 74, as Kuresha said, and that has been a number that's maintained, and others in the waiting room, I see. For the participants, feel free to put in your chats or your questions or your comments in the chat box. It is open. Maybe we give Fred a break. I know we have really been on him because he's the CEO. He needs to tell us whether they know this 4% alone, or they don't care about the people. And Fred, looks like people will want to work for you. For Octagon, you might be getting some people after this. So I think we'll move on to Gadoni. Now, Gadoni, this May is usually branded a mental awareness month. Now, is it just a May thing, or should this be the lifestyle? Talk to us about yourself before we also go into your questions. Karibu sana Gadoni.
Thank you so much, Esther. And I really am appreciating this conversation, because workplace toxicity is really a pertinent societal issue that we have to continuously talk about. And especially because of the impact that toxicity really has on our mental health. And mental health is such a big part of our well-being, in that if you're not okay, then everything around you just takes a domino effect. You know, nothing else is going to work. So I am a senior clinical psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group. I'm the head of digital relations there. I also work for another big hospital, AR Hospital on Kiambu Road, where I am in charge of in and out patients, and passionate about wellness and creating awareness. Allow me just to start by making a comment. It's absolutely amazing to see Kuresha here. We have done a lot of work together. I do appreciate the sentiments that you give from HR. I'll be asking you a few questions as well. And it's really great to hear from Fred. I'll call you by your first name, as you've said you like. Yeah, Esther, I, however, feel like you picked the best of the best, because the conversation out here about CEOs is completely different from what we've had, but I'm glad that we can have a model of how other senior managements should be and should behave. Just because there is negativity here and there does not mean that that's the way of life. And I do acknowledge because of where we are as a country, looking at Kenya, our economic status, just post-COVID effects, we have a lot more individuals and also the rate of unemployment. So we have a lot more individuals who could be in toxic work environments, but are very fearful. You're very fearful of getting out of that environment. You're also concerned about whether you're going to get a job or not, even though you have all the academic qualifications. You're very fearful of starting up a job. There is really no guarantee, on how things are going to take off. So all those things, confounded, make people stay in environments that are also unhealthy. I love what Kurasha said, that it's all our responsibility where culture is concerned. Ultimately, this has to begin with the CEO, but we are also owners of it as individuals in mid-management, supervisors, and also employees. And we need to get to a place where we come out of that bystander effect, because the toxicity is not happening to you, then you're not going to say anything about it. Another thing that has also been talked about that I would like to mention is that I don't know if individuals know, but CEOs are actually record as the highest stressed individuals, with the highest number of incidences of depression and anxiety. And I think also Esther mentioned her own experience talking to somebody in senior management. We remember the case of the senior manager who jumped off a building in one of the big organizations as well. So if it's about toxicity, it's not just up, down, but sometimes it can also be from the bottom, or even from a horizontal perspective. Why this is important? When we look at the definition of mental health, we say it's the overall well-being, whereby the individual is able to realize their own potential, cope with daily life stressors, be fruitful and productive. So that fruitful and productivity is where work comes in. The last part says make a positive contribution within the community. So one thing that we must acknowledge is that if we are saying that being fruitful and productive, work is actually part of our mental health, and that work environment in itself is not safe for your mental health, so you're absolutely going to suffer poor mental health. Bearing in mind that ideally we spend a third of our time in the workplace. I'm saying ideally because as Kenyans, Africans, I think it's a half or 3/4 of time that is spent in the workplace. So you can imagine what a big chunk of our time that occupies. Allow me to say that one of the questions that as a practitioner I'm always asked, how would you know that somebody is experiencing poor mental health? Okay, so number one, if what you're doing is affecting, for example, your sleep patterns, you're not able to sleep because you carried work at home, even if not physically, it's in your mind, you're busy problem solving, so you have trouble initiating sleep. Yeah, there are those ones who will sleep, wake up in the middle of the night, and toss and turn. And there are those individuals who are asleep, but your brain is awake. Literally, you can hear everything that is going on. And there are those individuals who will sleep even past 8-10 hours, and they are still seriously fatigued. And then a disruption in your eating patterns. That is very key. If you're here, just write down that the gut is the second brain. Go and read about that as well. So a disruption in eating patterns, and you will hear it from your colleagues. You'll hear somebody say, I didn't have dinner, I didn't have breakfast, and I'm not hungry. Something is very wrong. Or you're overeating, especially for women. Most women, like me, you're likely to overeat here and there. Mood is an alarm bell. You're able to tell if somebody has increased irritability within the workplace, or they are sad, they are low, they are withdrawn within their work environment. And then the fourth one is your bowel movements. All right, so all of a sudden you have loose stool that is not associated with anything that you ate, or you're skipping days for long calls. That's called constipation. And the fifth one, because we are all adults here, is libido. Usually when the brain is so overwhelmed, this is the urge, not the act, then you'll find that your libido goes down. For some individuals, it actually goes higher. Then there is, hypersexuality at that point. So why am I telling you this? Because sometimes you will hear people say, I'm in a toxic work environment. This happened at work. You'll hear people complaining. It means intellectually they do understand. But I want you to ask yourself the question, how is that impacting you? How is that impacting your well-being, your overall well-being? Those are the clinical red flags. And when those small issues are not addressed, what that triggers is those normal non-communicable diseases. So I am in a physical hospital setup. More often than not, you'll find somebody being sent my way because they are sick, seriously sick. All the results are negative. All the results, MRIs, CT scans, are completely negative. And when you score in those 5 clinical red flags, you'll find that they have 4 or even 5/5 or even 3/5. So this is a way to be able to actually evaluate yourself. We are also seeing people getting more incidences of hypertension, more incidences of type 2 diabetes, and this is because of stressors. And when you listen to the stressors as you're trying to evaluate that with your client, absolutely, work is always at the top of the list. There's work, there's finances, and then there's relationships. Those three are the main triggers. And the continuation of that is the development of mental illnesses, which I hope that we will have some times to delve into as we talk about this. So workplace toxicity, this is not something that we can ignore. We cannot ignore that. And one of the things that Esther was saying that I like to say is that if it costs you, I tell my clients, if it costs you your mental health, then it's too expensive. It is too expensive for you, because if you're not well and everything around you is not going to be okay. All right. Esther?
Wow, Gathoni, and Waswa is also smiling. I think Waswa, you heard that CEOs are the most stressed. Kuresha, we assume that you are sitting in the best seat.
Oh
It
my!
looks like you need to see Gathoni quite often. And
in
I'm
fact,
looking about.
in fact, I wanted to ask where does she sit? I think we need to visit her.
we need to go there because I'm looking at the sleep patterns. Kuresha, yes?
Actually, the study says that CEOs suffer depression at double the rate of the general population. Imagine that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Kuresha.
Terrible.
So we need a campaign of Me Too, but it's true. I can attest to that, because sometimes you will find yourself, as you rightly put it, your eyes are closed, but you cannot find sleep because your mind is still working. And when that happens to me, whether good or bad, I wake up, take a notebook, write everything. I try to download it from my mind, put it there, that you stay here, I'll come for each first thing in the morning. I don't know if that's a good therapy. I leave it on my table and go back to sleep.
I don't know how you're able to do that, Kuresha. I am the type that sleep patterns, and I know we are many here. Yeah. We are very many in the room here that would say that your sleep pattern. Somehow, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, I don't know that it's a matter of age, but I can't sleep now before 11 or 12, and I'm up so early. Somehow in the night, my brain is working. I have seen colleagues, and I've talked to colleagues that have told me, Esther, if my laptop is not next to my bed, I'm not able to sleep. Just in case my boss sends an email, I want to be sure that I can respond to it. Now, I have people who have their spouses and the laptop, on the bedside. So it's really a dangerous place to be. The fatigue and the overeating, and you can almost eat everything. And I see Terry here saying some people are constantly angry or even snap at a joke. Now, those are stressed people, very stressed people. We will look at, I know the chat is active, but Gathoni, tell us about the cases that you're handling. I know we've had conversations with you, and your office and your desk is full of workplace toxicity cases. Just talk to us about that.
Right. First of all, let me start by saying that today, the International Classification for Disease, newest version 11, has classified burnout as an actual illness. So we have a lot of individuals who are coming in because of burnout. And if you are indeed suffering burnout, it also means you're not in a work environment that is supportive, where your workload is concerned. So burnout is really at the top of the list, but because of the emphasis that we have had, even myself as an individual, on wellness, because wellness talks about not what is wrong with the patient, what's wrong with Esther. It says what happened to this person, what is it that has been going in this person's life to lead up to this, to them sitting in front of me. So sometimes work or toxic work environment, it's just that trigger that comes in now to push somebody over. But we must recognize that because individuals, we are holistic in nature, we have gone through a lot of experiences, then these are things that also need to be addressed. So because of the conversation that we are pushing on wellness, so we have a lot of people who are more self-aware today and walking into therapy and saying that, I'm stressed because of ABCD, or even I'm stressed because of work. But also when you get to the in-depth part of the conversation, you'll find that there are also other confounding factors. Or because you are stressed because of work, maybe you did adopt negative coping mechanism like alcohol and substance abuse. So that has made things worse. Or because of the stress you're going through, you're irritable. So you had an exchange, with your leader or your supervisor. So that, is making things worse. So to be very, very honest, today we are seeing a lot of people who are coming in specifically because of work stress. There's even I wouldn't say a list, but there's a list of organizations that people can outwardly say, organization XYZ, it's just bad news. If you're newly married or if you have children, don't go work for XYZ, because the work pressure or the culture there is so negative, you're not going to be able to handle. So we know of these things. They are within us, they exist among us, but being bold enough to come out and address these issues is a problem. Something that I've also found very concerning as a clinician, even the people who end up coming for treatment, and clearly we've been able to identify that's a toxic work environment. Ideally, as clinicians, it's to help advise or even support the human resource so that they can look for ways to engage employees from a wellness perspective. But you'll find even the people who still ended up in hospital don't want any of that to either go into their report. They don't want any of that to be addressed as well. So this is affecting you. It's definitely affecting other people. Maybe it's not become as severe as it is, but somehow you still want to protect the individuals, or still protect the organization, one way or another. And unfortunately, that just, it's like, the way you are sick internally, but you don't know. So this continues eating you from inside out. So you'll find that by the time somebody is getting to quit, because also our roles as clinician is not to tell you to stay or not to stay, it's just to support what you really want. But by the time somebody is making that decision to leave a job, to quit a job, it's already too late for their mental health. You're already living there with a diagnosis. So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to hold ourselves accountable as well. Sometimes you can't change the culture of a whole organization, but you're responsible for your own health, for your own mental health. So you can also decide, no, this is really affecting me too much. It's affecting my family. It's affecting my dreams and my goals. So I need, I don't know, to make a change, but not just to make a change, but also communicate so that something can be done as well. Look for a way to be able to communicate that too. I love what Fred said, that as a CEO, he does the walking around, and I think that's a very good thing, because we need to also humanize our leaders. We need to humanize the CEOs, and sometimes you'll find that if the chairman, if the CEO actually knew this was an issue, they would be so unhappy that this is going on. They would be so displeased that this is going on. But because there's a barrier, and sometimes it's just, an intangible one. It's not that somebody has told you can never do this. That fear is just there. But if we can be able to humanize the CEOs as well, I'm not saying that we should disregard the organogram, no. But we need to also humanize the leaders that we have, and be able to be, open enough to talk to them and to express ourselves. That's obviously if that environment is provided. Yeah. Fred, you are saying something?
Yeah. Sorry, Esther. It's always very difficult. So it's very difficult, especially for junior staff to talk. But sometimes, I have riders in the office. Riders, the one who basically do deliveries in the office. And sometimes I just pass and call the rider and said, "Hi, Javed, come. I want to send you somewhere. Come to the office, have a conversation. How's your family? The guy feels very good. He feels like, how can I have been called by a CEO to be able to be asked about my family? Because I'm not interested about the business, because somebody will tell me about what he's doing and what is happening around his job. But maybe if I asked him about his family, he'll also open up more and tell me what's going on around their family, around his life. Because as you said, mental health is all about work, it's all about finance, it's about relationships. And sometimes you look at it and ask yourself, are these guys, are their relationships okay? Because we are going through some challenges, we're going through issues as a nation, economic challenges, and you may never pay salaries enough. You get it? They will never be enough even if you paid more. So the only thing is, how do we help them understand that that's how life is? Life is about what we have. We need to, use it as little as possible, as much as possible, to be able to push us to the next level. So I think opening up is the biggest challenge. But the question is, will they walk in, as I said, will they walk in and be able to come and talk? But for me, I think what I do is I walk on the shop floor and say good morning or good afternoon. And people nowadays have known that Fred will walk here and say good morning, and when they don't say anything, I'm not around. When I go out to visit my other countries, I just make sure I must have dinner or a breakfast or a lunch with all the staff, and sometimes I tell the CEO, please, I don't come for this meeting, for this lunch. Just want to have a lunch with the rest of the staff. And my CEOs have come to understand, because these people, I always tell them, they're not your people, they're my people. They're my people, and they need to deliver for me. One time you will have to walk out. If you walk out, these people must know what's going on, must know our strategy, must know what are our values, what is it that we basically stand for as an organization. So that's critical. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Esther.
No, that's fine. But I want to get to Gathoni. I know this conversation is very nice. Gathoni, talk to us, because I have seen this toxicity leave the office and we take it home. We actually get to the home and everybody knows mom or dad or my sister or my brother had a bad day, because from the cat to the dog everybody experiences the wrath from the workplace.
Mhm.
So talk to us. How should we handle this? And knowing, honestly speaking, it's normal that I will either get home thinking about it and somehow pour it out somewhere. So teach us how to handle that from work to the home.
Right. Thank you, Esther, for that. I was laughing before because when Fred talked about values, it reminded me of the caution that, our values as institutions and organizations should not just be in the websites, or in our flyers. These are things that we actually need to incorporate ourselves as leaders and also pass that down. So allow me just to take a small amount of time just to teach you something briefly. There are three types of what we call anger styles. Okay, so I will end with the last. That's where your question falls. So the first one is called acting out. So these are the individuals who, you've had people say, I'm not going to sleep feeling like this. Tunamaliziana hapa. Of course, in the offices are the individuals who get into trouble because they are likely to answer back to the supervisor or to the CEOs and maybe, unfortunately, fired on the spot. Okay, so the individuals who act out, and then there is a second class of individuals who use barring. Yeah, from the word bury. So things are happening to you at work, and then because you don't know a better way to communicate or to express yourself, you bury them inside you. Technically, if you're observing these two people from a layman perspective, you will think that the person who acts out, is a bad one. They are verbal, they're engaging. You don't want to be caught by cops next to somebody who acts out. The first thing you'll tell them is don't say anything. When you're stopped by cops. But as a society, we think that this person who buries is the good person, quote unquote, because they don't like drama, they don't like to express. But that's actually the individual who we need to be more careful about, because statistically that is the person who is likely to snap or even get a mental illness more than the burying. The last group of people use displacement as an anger. So displacement as an anger style. This is the anger style whereby you project your anger to somebody or something that is less likely to harm you back in equal capacity. So something, it can be, these are the people who crash phones, TVs, crash the car, slash tires, but somebody, children, wife, a lot of cases of domestic violence are from people who characteristically their anger style is displacement. So it's not even that the issue is what was said in that moment, but what you have been carrying. So because work pressure is a lot, undeniably a lot, and toxic work environments are a thing and a realistic thing, then you'll find that a lot of people will go home, because home is your safe space. You will go and displace and project that anger to your partner, to your children, to the house girl. The minute you enter that door, you begin complaining from there on. And why I wanted to teach you this, it's because one of the best ways to be able to take care of ourselves is to allow ourselves, even from the CEOs, to take an inventory. When you're asking a question of who am I, what kind of a person am I, as Gadoni, what's my anger style? Okay. And if you're able to know that, then you're actually able to take care of yourself in terms of the response. Remember, we cannot control what has happened to us, but we are in charge, and absolutely we can control what we can do. So if you know that your anger style is displacement or even acting out, then you know for you can't go straight home because you're under pressure. Please look for a detour, even if it means sitting in the car just to decompress. If it means passing through a gym, please, by all means, do that so that you don't go home and displace. If you know that barring is also part of you, because remember, when you get to that level where you completely snap, the first people to get hurt, it's not your employer, it's not your employee, they'll replace you tomorrow. All right? It is your family, your partner, your children, the people who care and love you. Those are the people who are going to be affected. Okay. And of course, if your anger style is acting out, those are still the same people who will completely be hurt. So it is important to be able to do that. But how? This has to begin with number one, I like to say, acknowledging where the problem is. Remember, work, it can be a trigger. But if you have a lot of experiences that you have gone through that are negative, adverse childhood experiences, you've continued struggling throughout life, you went through grief. Maybe I remember during the pandemic, there were, some people were laid off, but there was also the threat of, your salary will be cut down. So you know that you're going through a stressor. You have to deal with that problem. You cannot put an elastoplast over it. It's still going to be there and it's still going to eat you. So acknowledge the problem. Look for a way to deal with that problem. Process it. I usually tell people, even if you don't, 10 years from today, you'll still come back to this thing that you tried to bury. But when we are looking at a prevention, from a prevention point of view, then it has to be self-care. Yeah, because self-care is what helps build our emotional resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. Remember the definition of mental health? We said cope with daily life stressors. So yes, stress is part and parcel of our lives. I jokingly tell people, if part of your prayer request is, God, please remove stress from my life, you're already setting yourself up. Stress is part and parcel of life. But the difference between the people who are not able to progress or to cope with daily life stressors is resilience. And resilience is built from self-care. So if you have a good self-care routine, and self-care is not just one thing, there are 6 areas of it. Maybe I'll share with Esther so that she can share with you. It's physical self-care, it's social self-care, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's social part of it, professional, and it's also spiritual. Okay. And I know we're in a bad space as a country talking about these things about spirituality, but spirituality is not religious. We are just talking about, do you have a belief system in a God, in a higher power? Because that's where hope comes from. Yeah, even when you're leaving this, going to the next, you have no guarantee about tomorrow. But the difference between you and somebody at the edge who is completely helpless and hopeless, it's because they know that things are going to get better at some point. So prevention is key. Maybe Esther, you can allow me to talk about briefly, because I can see time is going. What we are doing.
Actually, sorry, I was actually going to tell you, please.
Yes.
It is the Mental Awareness Month. Please take us through the self-care routine. I think we still have time. You still have quite some time yourself as well before we are still within time. Please do, for the benefit of everyone. Yeah.
So self-care is the intentional process of, there's a WHO definition of it that says it's the intentional process of taking care of yourself with or without the help of a healthcare provider. But I like to say, from my 10 years of experience working, that it's the intentionality that you have on yourself when you come to a realization that you're worth it. That's a very important thing. The reason why we show up to work as our best self, it's because part of our brain realizes, this job is worth it. So how you dress, how you speak, how you conduct yourself, it's a game. Yeah. Remember when you get into a relationship and you think this is the best thing? Yeah. So you give your A game, how you talk, how you communicate, how you look at after yourself and after that person, how we look at our children, how we address them. It's because we know they are worth it. Now, the reason why we are not able to engage in self-care, it's because there's still a part of you that does not recognize that you are worth as an individual. And as long as there's a little part of you that does not feel you're worth it, then you're not going to be intentional about yourself. Every end month, this is the end of the month, You write a whole list, to-do list. There is nowhere you appear in that to-do list. You're ready to go for the meetings, for the wakes, for the church things. You're there for friends. You're there for everybody. Who is going to be there for you? You're not there for yourself. So you will only take care of yourself physically because you know my body, it's the temple. I need to take care of this hardware. Physical self-care comes in. You must make time for physical activity. Physical activity is the only natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety. It's the only natural way to ensure that your brain performs optimally. Physical activity. What you eat, remember I said the gut is a second brain. What are you putting in your body? Yeah, I like to say that, when I was young, I would put so much sugar in my tea that it used to be like a syrup. And my grandmother used to tell me, Kikuyu, nobody will tell you to stop. Yeah. And now I'm at that age where you want to eat pink salt, you don't eat sugar, maybe a little honey, you want to take green teas. All right. But if you start that way from your 20s, then your body is actually able to work for you. Sleeping. Yeah. I know it was said here very jokingly and all of you laughed, but sleep is the clinical billboard red flag, a red wall, a red duvet that something is wrong. You must be able to sleep. Of course, when you're between the ages of 30 and even maybe 45, those are your most productive years. So you're likely, to do a lot and sleep less. You're inspired by life. You're passionate about your job. But don't forget that sleep is very, very important, because if your brain is not able to rest, it's the command system. It's not going to be able to work for you, especially when you cross over your 50s. So make sure that you teach yourself how to sleep. Anyway, social self-care is very important. I know Fred jokingly saying there are those guys after work who go and drink together. I want to say that's only a fraction of social self-care. In fact, I usually tell my clients that's not even social self-care, because if you go with your colleagues for a drink, you'll spend that whole time talking about work, project, salaries, your bad boss. It's just about work. You've just moved to a different environment to still talk about work. So build yourself what we call social capital. Have friends that are different from your partner, from your colleagues, that work for you. Everybody has that one friend who, when they speak to, they live out of their feeling like they have a superpower. You have that one friend. That's the person you need to spend more time with. For those of you who are here and are parents, it's not social self-care. If you took your children out, that's for them. You're still at work because you're there taking care of them. If you went for a wedding with your partner, it's not part of social self-care, because you'll be like, babe, the weather has changed. Let me go get for you a jacket. You're still at work. Look for a way to engage yourself differently. Build your own social capital. Emotional self-care is about your emotions. Are you able to recognize that today I'm irritable, today I'm sad, and why am I feeling like this, and what can I do to alleviate this feeling? Psychological self-care is about being able to recognize, to be cognizant of our thought processes. We are indeed a product of our thoughts. Yeah, the acronym is TAB, T-A-B, thoughts, actions, behavior. If you wake up and your thought process is negative, I don't want to go to work, it's Monday. Yeah, the action that will follow that is not to jump up in happiness. The action is actually to drag yourself, start wondering whether you will send an email, to come in late today, yeah, to drag yourself to the bathroom. Your action would be to drive recklessly, hooting everywhere, and maybe even, scratch somebody. Thoughts, then actions. And an action today, an action tomorrow, you formed a complete new behavior. So if you wake up today at 9, tomorrow at 9, the third day, you formed a new behavior. You don't even remember what it meant to wake up at 5. So we have to be cognizant of the negative thoughts we have in our mind and counter that with positive thoughts. When we're talking about professional self-care, I tell people in the workplace, do not be that individual who has worked for 10 years with the same basic degree, how you entered that job. Part of you feeling good about yourself, about progress, about whether or not you have chances for growth is if you develop yourself. And I know education is very expensive, but there are so many free courses, free things that HRs are always ready to take. In fact, one of the things that Chiromo has made mandatory for us now in our BSc is that every quarter you must put in a certificate of something that you've learned. Yeah. And you know, it's a good thing because even if you will try and transnite the last 2 weeks just to get that certificate, it's still yours. And nobody, education, by the way, is the only thing nobody can come back and say, nilikusomesha, bring back this degree. No, that's the only thing you can have for yourself. So professional self-care is very, very important. Remember, it's part of the mental health and spirituality. You know, the question of who am I? That's in spirituality. You know, the question of, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Am I in the right place? That's in spirituality. The question of reflection, yeah, where am I going? Which direction? That's in spirituality. The question of reflection, that is also in spirituality. Being grounded, value system, a moral code of conduct, that as well is in spirituality. So self-care will help build you if you cultivate that for yourself. The minute a stressor comes along the way, because they're going to be there, even if it's work that has been, you know, you've been laid off, you're going to be better off in terms of emotional resilience than a person who never took time to take care of themselves. So I hope that we'll take this as a challenge to build a wellness toolbox. Okay, so if you do something physical, you put a coin in your wellness toolbox. So if you have 5 coins, you're better off than the person with 1 coin, but the person with 1 coin is better off than the one with 0 coins. Yeah, so do that for yourself. Since Esther is quiet, please allow me just to tell you what we are doing. So one of the things that we did as Chiromo is that we did launch a human resource mental health work policy in conjunction with IHRM. Okay, Kuresh is here. She can also tell us more about that. So this human resource mental health work policy is what we use to build up employee assistance programs. So it has been intentionally curated for organizations to be able to take care of individuals, promote wellness, prevent mental illnesses. And the best part of this is that the EAPs that we're engaging in extend to families. If your family is not okay, if your children are not okay, you're not going to be a productive member within the workplace. So we are not just having group conversations in terms of talks. We'll do talks, but we'll also do individual counseling sessions. And then that will also be extended as well to the families. There is a toll-free line that we have, which is 0800 to 20 000. Anybody can be able to call that toll-free line. You will not get a full session, but what you're going to get is psychological first aid if you're really in a very bad place at that particular point. You can call that line. It's free of charge, and you're going to be able to get support. Another thing that we've done with organization is the top-bottom strategy. I know you guys have been hearing of bottom-up, but the top-bottom strategy we are talking about, if Fred does not understand what well-being of employees means, how are we going to implement it at the bottom? Okay, so unless the management is able to understand, unless they are able to actually know this by heart, then they cannot be able to support that employee who is saying, I don't have sick leave, I don't have any more leaves, but you can clearly see this person is not okay. Yeah, they can't implement policies within the workplace. I remember I went for an organization that they are forced to take 5 days, they have to be consecutive within that year, that are not sick offs and not part of your leave for wellness. Imagine that, for wellness. So if we have a leadership that is quite knowledgeable where mental health is concerned, then we are able to support the people at the bottom. Another thing that I want us to be keen about is we have digitized self-assessment tools. These are not diagnostic tools, they are brief screeners. Yeah, so if you're here and you're wondering, okay, could I have depression? I know we've really been abusing those words, depression and anxiety. But anyway, if you're asking yourself, then take the brief screener. Yeah, if you take the brief screener, it's able to tell you, is it mild, moderate, severe? In fact, we have what we call the patient health questionnaire. Yeah, Fred, I know you are shaken by these statistics, but you can take the patient health questionnaire and then see, okay, I think I'm okay. You know, it's telling me. And then it has a space that says, if you would like a psychologist to reach out to you, leave your number. Then we are also able to reach out to you. So feel free, I know there are HRs here, feel free to invite us for sensitizations. Feel free to just reach out to us, either through Esther or through Jadida, and we can be able to do that, okay? So you can call, I don't know, I'll just put this in the chat box, a number that you can call. And we also need to continue the work that we started with IHRM. I know Qureshi said 240 out of 17,000 can be able to take part in EAPs. We need a lot more. We need a lot more HRs on board, because one of the questions that I hear a lot from my clients, from people in organizations is, are HRs really independent? Yeah. So if the HR can see that this is definitely a toxic work environment, but the CEO has said this is what is going to happen, are they really, independent to be able to support the employee in the way that they're supposed to be supported, even though sometimes it overrides what the senior management has said. So we say that the HR is like the police watchdog for the people. Are they truly that? And how can we empower them to be that as well? So we also do group trainings for HRs where we give them psychological first aid before somebody comes to Gathoni. Actually, people only come to us as worst case scenario. They go to the managers and the supervisors and the HRs first. Yeah, so that continuous empowerment needs to take place. Over to you, Esther.
Wow, Gathoni, I think I want to allow Kuresha to speak, because there are solutions within IHRM and we are covered, being our professional body. I think we want to pass through IHRM. And yeah, Kuresha, over to you. Speak to, you're on mute. Maybe you can unmute, Kuresha.
Thank you, Esther. And just to give a brief history on why we actually partnered with Chiromo Hospital Group is that, as HR professionals, we play a key role, because we always find ourselves in a situation whereby we actually doing, we come in as caregivers. And I wanted to actually speak to that, on what drove us to even partner with Chiromo, is that the counselors are trained. As an employee, the HR is referring you to the EAP solutions that are available. And we hear so much as HR professionals that we don't even know it's confidential information. Some things can be overwhelming and it can weigh you down as a HR professional. So the way we have crafted for us to drive this is from two folds. First of all, ensure that you have that space, and people service providers like Chiromo, who can support you. Number two, we've crafted trainings to guide you just from a perspective of how do you handle that, can have questions, answers, and all that. Then number 3 is how do you protect yourself in terms of self-care? Because remember, self-care is not selfish. We always told, take care of yourself before you even take care of anyone else. And I love the conversation. There is nothing more important than your mental well-being. Mental well-being is wealth. Mental well-being is health. And the CEO of Chiromo Hospital Group, his favorite quote is always, there is no health without mental health. We need to ensure that we have mental wellness. The way you may think this is just mental, there is a physical bit of it, there is a financial bit of it. So it's a whole wheel, actually about 8 that touches on the individual as HR.
I think okay, she's back. Kuresha.
I dropped off. So
Yeah.
that is how, and I could actually listen to Gadoni again and again. I kept on flipping as I take notes on. It's good to first of all understand yourself, so that if you are the type who displaces anger, then when that time comes, nobody becomes your victim. If you bury, instead of burying, can I seek support through the EA? Settle scores there and then.
I think we're losing, or is it just me? Kathoni, oh, Kuresha is
Sorry,
back.
I dropped again. Let me switch off my video to see if it will be better. So what is the point I'm driving is that we need to craft something. And I know it's long overdue, Gadoni. We have worked on a very nice handbook that we really needed to teach HR professionals in a 5-day course on what we called HR Tufunguke. We're just waiting for the launch before we start implementation, and you will all love it. In our part as IHRM, what we did, the first survey we did that led to the book, and we've just concluded another one, and just for us to help us guide where we are with the HR professionals. I see some of the comments, how do you handle CEOs and all that? So we will prepare you mentally and give you the right competence as HR professionals to be experts on matters mental well-being and handling such issues. So that is what we are doing, Esther. And we are not, if someone asked, are we limited to Chiromo? No. I said in our 240 HR firms, there are those who specialize on matters mental health. You will see them in our forum. This year, as we go into our Congress from 15th to 19th, which by the way, I welcome all of you to join, we will be touching on matters mental well-being. It's part and parcel of all our trainings. And it's time, because she mentioned on this now, it's become part of the communicable diseases as per the WHO guidelines. And the only way we can pass the message is to repeat again and again to different audiences, to teach people how to handle themselves, to teach for people to assess and scan when something happens, whether it will be through an individual therapy, group therapy, but it's for the benefit of the organizational culture. When something big happens, then it's good to bring everyone together so that you can all have the same understanding on how to handle some issues. And it's never enough. I've listened to Gadoni speak about this again and again, but I was still flipping my hand notebook to take more notes. So thank you, Esther, for organizing this very timely conversation. And Simon, yes, actually, anyone who is interested in people's management is invited to attend our Congress. If for the HR professionals, is for the continuous learning. For anyone who is dealing with people, then the Congress is your place as you hear perspectives, different perspectives from over 20 eloquent, experienced facilitators on different topics. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thanks, Kuresha. Simon is actually from Tanzania. He says you will see me from Tanzania. So that's very good. That's very good. And thank you very much. I know we can be here all day. That's why from the beginning I said this conversation never ends. We definitely will be having more sessions on this. I think in the interest of time, if you allow me, I will go into Q&A. We had promised to finish by 7. There's so much on the chat. And I'm looking at the questions that had been sent with your registration. Actually, let me just mention this at this point, that if you're a HR professional and you're in this training, I hope when you registered, you gave your membership number, because that is what we will use for your CPD. So if you did not, please, I know the admin will be sending an email here. You could make that correction so that you do not miss on your CPD. Now, I'm looking at these questions here. I know most of them are just about toxic bosses, toxic managers, leaders who don't listen to you and all that. I don't know, Fred, maybe so that Gathoni can take a break. Fred and Kuresha, you have access to the chat box. Maybe you can look at what you could be able to answer. As we close, we are almost coming to the tail end, because most of them are just about CEOs I see here. Fred, the CEOs seem to be under attack.
Of course, they are in that pole position. You know, when you are in a pole position, everybody wants to throw a stone there at that pole. But I think before I answer, I really want to appreciate Kadoni. That was a fantastic presentation and talk. I've written notes here, and sometimes my handwriting can't read it myself. So I think I should just invite you to come and speak to us on this very particular subject of mental health. I think you understand it 101%, which in my view, I think we need to know. I think there's a question about Fred and Kadoni. What are your comments on unwanted leavers with regard to work toxicity? I think from where I sit, I get all my HR reports talking about regretted and unregretted leavers. You get it? But I think all leavers are regretted leavers. It's just that we're trying to conflate and say this ones we should have kept, this ones we should have just allowed to go. When we hire people, we're hiring good people. And I've always told my HR that you know, if we hire good people, we should regret to allow them to go, because we hired good people. But if we are regretting to leave them to go, it means that our hiring position is our hiring strategy is wrong. You get it? Because at the end of the day, what you bring in is what you will use and what will go out. So if what you bring in is not correct, then that is not correct will become what you get out. That becomes unwanted leavers. So for me, I don't think I accept the situation what we call unwanted. I always say all of them are wanted. Why did they leave us? You know, what is it that we could do to keep them? Yeah, do we have a challenge of performance? maybe they just got into a wrong job. Maybe they are supposed to be caterers, and yet we are financial advisors. So they just got into a wrong job. But if it's somebody who basically has worked in financial institution, has worked on pensions, on insurance, and training, and it comes into a business, should not be unwanted leaver. Should be basically a wanted leaver. It's just that we have done something that's not right. It is basically a toxic environment that is pushing people out, if that is what we're calling unwanted leavers. Yeah. Then they say, how do you find an organization's turnover rate while doing background checks before taking an offer? I'm not sure. I think there's somebody who gave a suggestion of how that is supposed to be found.
Terry,
Yes.
thank you, Terry. Terry is a very good friend of mine and a very senior HR. Terry Shundu said you can check Glassdoor. If it's listed, you will find reviews from current and former employees. That's what I was saying. If you want to join an organization, please do the background checks. Go to Glassdoor. You will see the reviews. You will see comments actually even on CEOs there and their leadership. You will know what to take and what to trash, because people can just say everything and anything anywhere. But I think you need to do your background checks. I see Rosemary asking, what advice can you give an HR who has tried to advise his toxic boss and failed? And there is high rate of staff turnover and he doesn't care. And even the HR is equally affected with this toxic CEO and has always monitor the CEO's mood to address serious issues arising in the organization. Now, this one, I know Kuresha can answer, but I keep saying it is wise for HR to also know the mood of the boss. I know we blame bosses, but they are human beings, as Fred said. They also come with their own issues to the office. If you want anything to table anything with your CEO, please know when to approach him. Just understand when to table something, because if the CEO has come from a bad meeting with the board, and then you're taking bad report, just be sure that Gathoni's style of, where was that? Anger
Management,
displacement. The displacement will be applied on you. So I think it's important. Kuresha, you want to say something about that?
Yes, thank you, Esther. You've rightly put that we all have our moments. And Gathoni has told us we need to remember that even the CEOs are human beings, and we need to treat them as humanely as possible. But again, when you take a responsibility as a CEO, it's also very important not to carry your burdens to workplace to an extent that your HR and the rest of the staff are not able to approach you. We have our bad moments, but we need to know how to balance. And the advice to the HR professionals, it could be that maybe now I'll tell you that they're human, the CEOs, but what if 5 days a week they're in a bad mood? Then you need to reassess on the right fit. Have you hired the right CEO? And what's the pressure? Go back to which I know they are filed. What are his objectives? Okay. Is the bar set so high? And what's your role as HR profession to ensure that he has a balanced workforce to help him or her deliver on the objectives which was set for him or her? But most importantly, it boils down to two things. How have you onboarded that CEO? And if amekutangulia and you joined after him or her, then find out what's the culture of that organization. My first point is linked to the second one, which is the culture of the organization. Policies, processes, how people handle each other, the respect we have for each other. How do we retain? How do we hire? How do we capacity build? All that comes to play. That you have, I want to call it an incubator. Your workplace should be an incubator for new ideas that even the CEO, when they walk in, then they leave their burdens at the gate because they feel safe at the workplace. My parting shot on that specific issue is, as much as you're a human being as a CEO, then do not burden your stresses to us. It's good to be stressed, but do not displace it to the rest of us to an extent that we cannot work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuresh. And I think that also ties to a message here. How do you deal with a manager who bullies you, talks down on you, and is very disrespectful, but somehow is friendly to others? I want you to maybe to
Thank
speak.
you. Esther, I would like to say this. The first thing you need to know, it's not about you. Okay? You are not the problem. So that is the first thing you need to understand. Number two, how often do you need to interact with that boss? Okay? When I say how often, it means everyone has set goals. Number three, when you find they're in the right mood, find out how can you work together. Not saying that, okay, when you're dealing with me, you're always angry. No, you approach from a point of, I would like to support you at your workplace. Please let me know. How do you want me to approach issues? How do you want me to report to you? Do we organize bi-weekly, monthly meetings? What will be our level of interaction? What is your expectation from me as Kuresha? And where do you think I can plug in to support you deliver on your mandate? Because remember, in any organization, performance is cascaded from the CEO to the supervisor to everyone else. So if you're working in such model, then he cannot or she cannot do away with you. And there's no way the person can favor someone else more than you, because you all have the same level of delivery. You all have your own way of plugging in to ensure that he's driving or she's driving safely. So take it, first point, it's not about you. Number two, avoid as much as you can. Number three, sit down with them and find out how can we work best to deliver. And remember, I always say, this is not, as much as we spend most of our time at workplace, then we need to separate professional from personal. Don't bring your personal baggage to an extent that it disrupts the professional space of everyone else. Thank you.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah,
Even,
yeah. Maybe I may just make one comment. From my experience, as a CEO, you always find one or two staff who basically shoot out. You can have maybe 5 people reporting into you, and maybe 2 of them, 2 people who basically walk into your office every other morning. Yeah, that reports to make an interim report or ask for a support something. I discovered that if you allow that to happen more, the perception is those 2 become favored, and the rest basically don't get favored, because what happens is that people in life, from an emotional intelligence perspective, people in life who are peacocks, who can wake up in the morning and hallelujah, come into your office, and there are others who don't, who unless you call them, they will not come to your office. So just as Kuresh has mentioned, I think the biggest thing the thing that one has to do is to put standards in terms of when do we need to meet, when do we need to have reports, so that everybody has a touch of you at a particular time, without one having more touch and having less touch, because that then creates differences, in the way you handle them.
And saying that, Fred, I think as we almost get to the close, I've seen one here talking about gossiping CEO. Now, I have seen leaders, and Gathoni is laughing because I've seen top CEOs who kind of thrive from gossip, the gossip they get from their staff. They will come into the office, go into their own personal space and begin to call people one by one. Calls Esther to tell them about Kuresha, calls Gathoni to tell them about somebody else. So by the time you get to the CEO, if you're not a bootlicker, well, if you go to my social media pages and you go to my YouTube, Conversations with Esther Katiba, I have talked about bootlicking. I personally handle topics and conversations that people don't want to talk about. Now, there's a lot of bootlicking in the workplace. And when such leaders discover that somebody is willing to bootlick, is willing to get into their office and tell them about somebody else, there's a gossip that they need to bring. There's something that such kind of incompetent leaders, and I call them incompetent because you don't have to rely on gossip to run your office. So speak to that, speak to that kind of leadership. And it may not just be a CEO anyway, it could also be senior management, but speak to bootlicking in the gossip area, yeah.
I think from where I sit is bootlicking can only happen if it's encouraged. Of course, as you say, the CEO calls people and listens to one and listens to one. I don't think that's the way you can lead an organization. It's very difficult, because there are people who thrive in doing that, and they thrive in gossip, in moving words across. You get it? Moving things across the organization. And some of them may just be absolutely wrong or maybe untrue, but because you as a CEO wants to hear, you will hear them. I always tell people that when you come to my office, please tell me what you need to tell me, not what you have heard. What you have heard, I will hear when I want to hear. You get it? So sometimes bootlicking is if you allow it, then it will happen. If you as a CEO encourages that, then that is not good management at all. Leadership is about yes, you need to put your ear on the ground. That's correct. But that ear must be put in such a way that it's not necessarily hearing gossip, because gossip can become very dangerous in the office.
Good, thank you very much, Fred.
Allow me to
Yes.
Just allow me to make a comment about maybe from a clinical perspective. We might look at usually because of the experiences that people have had in childhood, negative experiences in this case, then people learn compliance. And we kind of do that unconsciously to our children, where we teach them that we expect good behavior as parents. So from a young age, children learn to manipulate us. They learn that, when we are around as parents, they're doing all the right things. That's the same kind of behavior that is carried out all the way to the work environment. As a clinician, Brooke, please have your microphone muted, kindly. As a clinician, usually when I see that kind of behavior, even if it's with my clients or another person as a colleague, my question is usually, what has this person been through to be that kind of a person? Because all they are trying is to present good behavior to gain favor. It actually shows that they're not confident in themselves, in their opinions, in their work, and the only thing that they can do is be that person who will either snitch, will never say no, will pick up more work, and usually the end result of that is absolutely either burnout or worst case scenario, the person becomes resentful, because at some point you realize, even if I do all these things, I still fall short, in some areas. If you have a bad boss, then what they do is actually take advantage of that. So the people who need to be sent emails in the middle of the night, because they will definitely respond to it and attend to that short notice thing. But if you have a good boss, then they can actually be able to help you, and nurture you, and to help you actually learn how to have boundaries, and to help you grow, to be a better person. Because if that behavior, continues, it actually becomes quite unpleasant, and you become frustrated. So when you come across those people, before we even jump on to say, these people are bootlickers, maybe we need to figure out, how did they become those kind of people? And are they also those kind of people in their home environments, or it's just here at work, and at home they're terrorists? And really look for a way in regards to how we can be able to support them. There is usually a lot more underlying that is going on with that person than what we are just seeing. Yes, yeah, just clinically.
Oh, great, great. Now, I just want to say one thing, especially on the bootlicking. Admin, just help me manage Kellen. That even the person whose boots you leak does not respect you. I know that's like an ouch, but even the person whose boots you leak does not respect you. Kellen, Jero, please put off your camera, kindly. Switch off your camera. Thank you. Thank you. So, and there's a Damaris that needs to mute kindly. As we close, thank you. I am seeing a lot of compliments on the messages. This is a great session. Looking forward to more. This is a brave and helpful move that will help the society. We are now, yeah, these are topics that people are scared to speak about, and that's absolutely true. I want to just welcome, I don't know whether, Fred, I want us to go into our final remarks. We can stay in this conversation all day, all night. I know, Gathoni, you can see that. But we will definitely be bringing up more sessions. So we have to end it. It's 6:32. I know it's time for people to get home. People on the road, I can obviously tell, and thank you for that commitment to even listen. And I hope you have, yeah, someone says here, excellent session. We need more of such sessions. Keep your eyes open. We have more coming, and candid conversations, serious candid conversations. So parting shot from each speaker. Could we start with Fred? Fred, are you there? Give your parting shot.
Yes, thanks, Esther. I think first is I would like to appreciate this opportunity to be on this forum. And thanks for the great contribution. I think I've learned a lot today, especially anger styles. Thank you very much. How to manage anger, and I've also gotten a conduct that will be able to help our staff on mental health, because mental health is basically getting into everybody's space. But I think as we finish, I just want to mention one thing about toxicity. Is just the way we culture people, the way we help our young managers get into office. The other day I was speaking to somebody and saying that the whole environment is bringing in managers much faster than what we did. When I got employed 32 years ago, I got the first position of supervising people, I think about 7 years into my work. These days, 3-4 years, people are managers. They need to supervise people. So I think also training needs to happen a lot more, getting people to understand how to manage people, how to interact with the people. it's important. HR needs to look at it in terms of upskilling young managers to be people that can help others, especially in toxic environments. So I think for me, culture is very important. Training is critical, and induction processes in organizations, which will help in terms of making sure that we have less toxic environments. Thank you very much.
Good. Culture, inductions, and just making sure the environment is conducive. I'll go over to Gathoni for your parting shot, please.
Unafanya swali kazunguka
Elizabeth, admin, just deal with that. Thank you. So Gathoni, your parting shot. Gathoni, yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, I truly appreciate, I thank God for this opportunity. It's always such a great honor to serve God and humanity all the time. Thank you, Esther, for organizing this. And to my co-panelists, Fred and Kuresh, this was absolutely amazing. I've also learned a lot from you, and I look forward to more interactions, out there on a one-on-one basis. I can't forget to thank everybody who's come into this conversation. I truly believe that even if it's just one person who will take a message, that one person is 10 lives. So I'm so glad that we can have such spaces to have candid, those conversations that people are afraid to have. And for me, I would say that wellness is key. Yeah. If you're waiting for a red flag, if you're here and you're waiting until you start talking to yourself, it will be too late. The brain has no litmus paper. There's no way to check. Yeah. So don't wait for worst case scenario. Don't wait for those red flags for you to say, let me go see a psychologist or let me talk to somebody. As long as you know that you are in a domestic issue, you're in a work environment that is unhealthy, you went through grief, your children are, disturbing you here, you have adverse childhood experiences, those are enough reasons. Just go and check in and talk to somebody from a wellness perspective. Your mental health is your wealth. And last but not least, tufunguke. This is a Swahili name and it's a global campaign that we are running. And this is just calling upon everybody to speak up, to stand up against stigma and discrimination where mental health is concerned. And we have Tufunguke for organizations. We have Tufunguke high school tours. If you're a teacher, invite us. This is part of our CSR. We have Tufunguke in churches. We have Tufunguke in universities. All sensitizations are part of the Tufunguke, which is the initial part of the conversation. It's a CSR engagement. Okay, if you don't get that, it's free of charge. So we can absolutely be able to build a better community and a better society around us. We don't exist alone. Okay, so we are surrounded by a community. So please also join us in this campaign by being a mental health champion in your home. Yeah, the family is the basic unit of the community. When we say there is stigma in the community, who is that community? It is you and I. So be champion wherever you are, be a mental health champion, and start with yourself where wellness is concerned. So good evening to all of you, and I'm looking forward to the next.
Thank you.
Esther.
Thank you. Thank you, Gathoni. Kuresha, over to you for your parting shot.
Thank you so much, Esther. I first of all would like to take this opportunity to really thank you for inviting me to this conversation and for even taking the initiative to make sure that we speak about this. As you can see from the conversation, from having one for people managers to even people chatting me separately that we need to have this at branch levels. It's something that I hope the branch leadership who signed in can run with it. Number two, there's so much workplace toxicity that goes on. We need to speak up about it. And this actually requires for us to be proactive. We need to be proactive. We need to involve all stakeholders in the organization. And as HR leaders, we need to make sure that everyone is on board into this conversation, from the executive to the people at the entry level. You need to create safe, supportive, and productive work environment. And you can only get that if you address workplace toxicity. Be proactive in avoiding it as much as possible. Sometimes it's not possible, we've been told. When it happens, do you have clear structures on how to handle it? Let's promote open communication, let's be transparent, and let's be accountable. Even as things happen, have that open channel to always speak about that this is not who you are, this is what you stand for, and this is how you will handle when those issues come up. Coaching, collective conversation, collective ownership to create that safe space, enabling environment that we all looking for, that can help us thrive both as individuals and at organizational level. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I personally want to thank you for accepting to be our speakers. Maybe to everyone on this call, they are not paid speakers. This is free. And to get their free time is really, it's a sacrifice for them. So thank you very much, Kuresha. Thank you, Gathoni. Thank you, Fred, for that. Thank you to the participants and for engaging us really big. Thank you to our sponsors. Conversations with Esther, CRS, Career Route Solutions Limited, Chiromo Hospital Group, Octagon Africa, and IHRM. We will continue to engage everybody. We will continue to keep you informed. We'll continue to have candid conversations. Feel free to follow us on Conversations with Esther Katiba. That's our YouTube channel. And please make sure you subscribe. We discuss candid conversations there, workplace conversations. Talk to us. In the next, I know we have launched fireside chats that happen every Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. May 10th, we will have men and mental health. Now, I'm inviting all of you. It's not for men alone, but I'm inviting you to the men and mental health. And I know, Gathoni, we will talk much about this. On May 17, we have women and mental health. And the reason we are separating is because also women carry the family, they carry the community, and they have work with themselves. Now, May 24th, we will have children and mental health challenges, because we are having a lot of this in schools. We are having a lot of suicides, and we are having a lot of depression in children. Now, May 31st, to close the month, we will partner definitely with IHRM and Chiroma and the rest, and look into what the government is doing about managing mental wellness in the country. So thank you very much. Our month is packed. Keep locked on our LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn, Esther Katiba. Go to our YouTube channel, Conversations with Esther Katiba. Go to our Facebook, we use the same name, and everything else remains constant. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana, enjoy your evening, and God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye,
Thank you,
Kuresha.
Esther.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Gadani. Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.